Welcome, my friends, to the Bob and Brad podcast. My name is Mike Keenitz, and today I'm interviewing physical therapist Sarah Haag. She is an expert in urinary incontinence and bladder control. She is also the part owner in Entropy Physiotherapy and Wellness and the author of the book Understanding and Treating Incontinence. So, without further ado, here is Sarah. All right, so we're going to start talking about urinary incontinence. So, first question is, what causes urinary incontinence?
Great question. There's actually a lot of different things that can cause urinary incontinence. Some people have the misconception that it's just a weak pelvic floor, but it can be a little bit more complicated than that. So it might be easier to talk about how do we stay continent? And basically, to stay dry, what we need is some sort of closure on our urethra, which is that tube that goes from our bladder to the outside world. So that can be our urinary sphincters, our pelvic floor muscles, helping keep that closed. But then also it requires our bladder, which actually has a smooth muscle around it, to kind of stay relaxed. So we have a little bit of tension down here, and our bladder's kind of relaxing. And then as that bladder fills up, eventually we'll have a little stretch, and that's kind of what gives us the urge to go to the bathroom. So when our bladder starts to stretch at a certain amount of fluid in there, it makes us feel like we got to go to the bathroom. When we go to the bathroom and we relax the pelvic floor, and that bladder muscle, the detrusor, squeezes everything out. So that's when everything's working together. They kind of work together, but are doing opposite things. One's relaxing while the other one's working. Incontinence happens when the pressure on the inside of the bladder and or our intra-abdominal cavity, which is basically everything below our breathing diaphragm, down to our pelvic floor. So if the pressure in there becomes higher than our ability to close that urethra or keep it squeezed shut, that's when we have a leak. So it's kind of like this imbalance in the equation. So what causes incontinence? Sometimes it is some weakness in the pelvic floor. Sometimes it's that the urethra or the bladder has become hypermobile, and so it doesn't stay supported and in the right spot. For men, one of the things that might happen is that if they have prostate cancer, an issue that causes the prostate to be removed, they actually lose some of their urethra and perhaps some of their sphincter. So now that's one of those contributing factors to their incontinence. Going up higher to the bladder, it can also be overactive bladder. So, some people say they just have a small bladder, or they feel like they have to go to the bathroom all the time. That's actually that bladder muscle, again, which is a smooth muscle, which really we don't have direct control over, but we can kind of condition it and train it. Maybe that's squeezing too much all the time. And that's in a person where their neurological system is intact. Excuse me. There's a lot of other reasons involving more of like the neurology of bladder function that could cause urinary incontinence.
So it's not one thing, basically. It could be many causes, right?
Could be many causes. And actually, something I'll talk to my patients about is sometimes it's a bunch of little things that added up to the incontinence. So if they have an empty bladder, they can run a 5K. If they have a cup of coffee, which might make their bladder a little twitchy because it makes some people's bladders irritated, and they have a slightly weak pelvic floor, and they go running, now they leak. So sometimes it's a couple of different things feeding into that episode of incontinence.
Is coffee because of the caffeine, or why does that cause problems?
Great question. So there isn't tons of really strong research on irritants for bladders. We just know for some people, caffeine, some other common ones are carbonation, artificial sweeteners, citrus juices. For some people, it really makes their bladder want to empty. But I will say, in my clinical practice, this is not across the board. So if you're like, wow, I go to the bathroom all the time, but I love my coffee, what do? I'll have people do a voiding log so we can kind of look at when are your issues happening? And how much do we think is the coffee having to do with it? Because I had one person get way better when they drank as much coffee as they wanted.